Okay, so welcome to the crash course in hypothesis testing. So, in in my belief system, I think we're all gearing up to get to this point in statistics. This is kind of what it's all about. Um, if you ever get into a graduate program or a master's program, you're going to have a research element, most likely. And in said research element, you are going to be familiarized with hypothesis testing. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Basically, data is gathered and you make a hypothesis and then you test it. So, kind of like the scientific method where you're like, I think something in nature occurs, and you go out and you gather evidence and then you do a scientific test, and then you could see whether your hypothesis was correct or incorrect. We gather data, we gather statistical data, and then we use a mathematical measure to determine whether something is significantly different, usually, than the stated average. So we don't do an experiment, but we do do a math thing. And when we do the math thing, that's when we figure out if we're right or wrong. And education majors, you're going to see this a lot. Health people, people in the health field, this is where, you know, all those prescription drug ads, when you see all those side effects, well, that comes from statistical research, and it comes from hypothesis testing, and effectiveness of a drug comes from hypothesis testing. And people in social sciences like psychology and social work, you're going to do hypothesis testing out the butt. So it does really have a lot of uses after this point in time. There are different kinds of hypothesis testing depending on what kind of data you have. But I think, unfortunately, we're only going to see two of them. If we were in class, we would see maybe about 3 or 4 different types of basically just a change in the test score, but different uses for it. But here we're just going to focus on the main two that we're going to see. So basically, that was a lot of words to say. This is what's happening. You have this symbol, right? Big H, little o, or not. So this is whatever your old, we're going to do hypothesis testing for mean. So this is what your old mean is, all right? So you're going to have something where I think our mean equals some number. And then you're going to be given information, and there's going to be a claim. There's going to be an alternative hypothesis. Of course, my pen's running out. So this is the new mean, or claim, or alternative hypothesis. So you're going to see either an A here, A for alternative, or sometimes you see a 1, like this is 0, this is 1. But it means the same thing. So this will be our new thing. Now, when we set up our hypothesis, if we're saying the mean, whatever the mean is, it equals this number. Our claim will have 3 different kinds. We're going to have that our mean is either greater than that number, less than that number, or not equal to that number, okay? Those are the 3 different options we have for this alternative claim, and that's given in the information, usually. Then, after we do that, we find our test score, and guess what? We've already done it. This is basically a z-score. Just like that, same thing we did before. And then we find our critical value. and we use table, and right now we're going to use table F. And we look it up. I'll talk about that in the next video. And then you compare. And you make a decision. So those are the 5 steps of, hypothesis testing. You state your hypotheses, your old stuff and your new stuff. You find your test score. You find your critical value. You compare and make a decision. That's it. So next video, I will talk about how to start and do all that wonderful stuff.